So my own journey, right, with the theater of the absurd, started pretty much about the same time um, that I guess the same age that you're probably living right now, right? I was in my junior year. I was here at Capitol, right, and I was studying abroad, and we were given a book called The Bald Soprano, which we are going to read a little bit later by Eugene Ionesco. And I read this book, and I'll be 100% honest with you, I hated it. I didn't like it at all. We had to read it because it was in our exchange group. We were told we were going to go and see a version of this play done live. And we were going to go to Paris. We're going to go to this classic theater, little tiny black box that had maybe 20 seats in it. And all of us were going to watch this play. And so we had to read it first. And so I remember getting to France, reading that play, and saying to myself, what is this absolute nonsense? It makes no sense. The syntax doesn't work. There is no story here. Nothing makes any sense in this play. And everybody, when I try and ask people about it, they would say, I don't know, like, it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And so I went to this play and got to Paris, got to this little tiny theater, the Théâtre de la Huchette, and, went in and saw the play. And by the time that play was over, I was pretty much ready to start studying this stuff. And what was it about the play? I couldn't really tell you, except for the fact that it struck a chord in me that simply resonated very deeply. And what the best I can explain it is exactly what Esslin says in the introduction to the Theater of the Absurd, that you are expecting a certain thing, and then you are confronted with your own reaction to something that you may not even understand, right? For me, it was this idea that language, right, is very, very fragile, right? It takes only a couple of words here and there, misplaced, transposed, tenses wrong, ideas that are just slightly off, to completely derail any form of communication that we've got. Right? This is not the same as, for example, I think I may have misunderstood you. This is, if two people are talking with each other, right, they can have two completely separate sentences. Both sentences, basically, or two separate conversations, both conversations that make sense in and of themselves, but if they try to talk across at each other without listening, then there is no communication, right? And the Theater of the Absurd did something for me that was very important. It sort of said to me, when we pay attention to other people, we can decide to respond either in a way that is helpful and communicative or in a way that is disruptive and absurd, right? And that can be very funny, right? We will talk about how things can be funny, right? That when we watch a show like Robot Chicken or a lot of, animated television today, that part of the thing that we sometimes enjoy about it is that it is absurd. It is ridiculous, right? You expect a certain thing and something else happens, right? You open a suitcase expecting clothing to be in there, and instead a pie comes out and hits you in the face, right? It's something that you don't expect, and that makes it funny. For a lot of people, the Theater of the Absurd sounds like it's just going to be things that are funny. Is there humor in the Theater of the Absurd? Absolutely there is. Is there also a lot of sort of tragic sentiment? Yes, I think there is, right? Esslin talks about the fact that this play, Waiting for Godot, affected these two, two or three prisoners, right? So deeply because they sat, they listened, and they realized, right, that these people they were seeing on the stage were prisoners as well, right, of a time and a place and decisions that were not theirs, that, you know, their lives were not theirs, and that they just sort of understood, right? If it's hard to explain, I think it's because, right, again, as we talked about in the previous video, one of the things that is so important for the theory of the absurd is not explaining everything, just simply showing people what it feels like to be, you know, trapped in the absurd, what it feels like to not be understood. Not showing people talking over each other necessarily, but showing people who are simply um, incapable of understanding what's going on because they're not getting any answers. Um, and so, really, the best way to continue on, right, with you know, the theory of the absurd, read Martin Esslin's introductory chapter. It's very important, sort of, just to take a look at it and to see exactly the way that he describes how, right, these playwrights wrote their plays. It's important to understand that none of these playwrights really were writing plays specifically called the theater of the absurd, right? They were writing plays that eventually sort of fell into a category of the theater of the absurd, that fell into a category where, right, they were recognized as, this is what we're doing, right? In the same way that, you know, the very first time that, you know, Monet painted something that was an impressionistic painting, he didn't say immediately, it's impressionism and I have created it, right? People came up with that idea and sort of started labeling it after the fact, right? Again, existence preceding essence. Existence being the creation of these plays, the essence being how people responded to them, what they got out of them, right? Are you going to get the same things out of this play that I'm getting out of them? I really don't think so. I mean, everybody's experience with plays and with art is different. If we looked at surrealism, if we looked at Dada a little bit, and sort of talked through how do these things make us feel, we react differently to art. I know plenty of people who've been to Paris and who've looked at the Mona Lisa and said, it's tiny, it's not in great shape, I don't know why we're so excited about it. And others who go and they have incredible experiences in front of it because it is something that they have really wanted to see, and they interact with it in a way that's different, right? You are going to interact with the theater of the absurd differently than other people are going to do it, right? What I'd like you to do, though, is be open to those experiences. I am not asking you to fall in love with the theater of the absurd, but I am asking you to honestly enter into a discussion with it, to honestly enter into and to experience this theater of the absurd as much as you can, right? Is the theater of the absurd often a buzzword for being pretentious? Sure. Will you find it like that? Will you find it to be a pretentious waste of time? Maybe. I cannot tell you that because you are going to be experiencing this yourself. And so, I want you to interact with the stuff that I'm putting up this week, right? I'm going to be putting up some links to plays in the theater of the absurd that you can watch. Very short things, right? But also links to the a performance of the Waiting for Godot that I particularly find very, very well done, right? Again, you may need to break it into parts, right? And you may sit down and take a look at it and say, you know, I do not know what I'm watching. I don't know why I'm watching it. Fair. But experience it, right? At least try to get through the first half of the play and honestly evaluate, right, the way that your interaction with it goes, right? I think that's important. So, there we go.